Hey guys, welcome back to another video. As you can probably see, we're in a different background, different environment, different room, and I'll get more into that later of what's going on, what happened, and everything. But yeah, for now, I just want to kind of, I guess, give a quick update of what's going on with me and just in general, and just kind of get into a bit of my experience so far in this new, you could say, era of my life, and some interesting things I've experienced so far, and some things to look out for in the future. So yeah, let's get right into it. So the elephant in the room is that I moved to London. Now I've officially moved to London. I've been here, to be honest, for about a couple months, probably like 2 months in total, and but it's been very hectic. Lots of things have uh, have happened in this past 2 months. Definitely hasn't felt like just 2 months. Um, Definitely a character building process. I knew, before I was moving here, I knew it wasn't gonna be easy. I wouldn't say it's been hard per se. To be honest, it hasn't been too hard, but even with the whole process, like the bureaucracy of doing the visa and um, and all that, that took a long time, and there was like this kind of, oh, you have to go to this website, do this. The website wasn't working, or didn't know how to do it, so I was just it's a lot of like a waiting game, and I feel like that's one of the best ways to describe it, and what I'm kind of getting, the vibe I'm getting from London. I don't know if this is with my experience, and when I was living in Spain and Madrid, it was similar. That there's a lot of kind of bureaucratical red tape. I think it's what it's called. No, that's pretty. Um, it's basically like in order to do something through the bureaucracy, if it's through visa, anything really to do with the government or just kind of like a big company, the process of doing something just takes so long. And I feel like that's one of the things that's really kind of, I wouldn't say, maybe, yeah, has surprised me, but the thing to describe it the most is kind of like when you want to do things, for example, getting a job, or I want to start working, I want to do all this, and it's like, for me, it was the famous share code, and the share code is basically a code that they give you. Now everything's kind of electronically, so your right to work isn't through a card anymore. It's through this code online that you have to get, and to get the code, you have to download an app and do all this. And I was just having so much trouble, like through the website. Basically, yeah. But I finally figured it out. The whole time I was waiting, and I thought that like I just had to wait for the share code. Turns out the whole time I was waiting, there was a way of getting it that they didn't really specify. You just had to know. So, yeah, it was a lot of that. Um, I guess one question would be like, why am I in London? A lot. I've gotten a lot of, ever since I've been here as well. I've gotten a lot of those questions, just from people from here, because they always ask like, why am I in London? And they always assume it's like like tourism, or uh, I don't even know. But whenever I say work, they always get confused because they're like, oh, but you're from the United States. It's usually the other way around. People go to the United States for work, not leave the United States. But obviously, as you guys would know, with my line of work, it makes more sense to leave the United States and come to a place like England or Europe, being in the football industry. And yeah, so I'm here, I guess, to chase that dream, or just not even chase a dream, just to progress forward. And I like the quality of life. I don't know if it, yeah, I'd say the quality of life, or the style of life. I like kind of, especially in this where I'm at right now. I like driving. I do like driving, but just like the physical act once in a while. But once you're when I was living in my parents' house back in the United States, we're in a kind of like very suburban town. So if I wanted to do anything, really, it was just massive amounts of driving. And to be honest, here it's like this sim. To be honest, it's very similar commute times. For example, if I want to go play in a certain game or field, it's like average an hour, 55 minutes to an hour commute time. But I would say at least here you're surrounded by people, and it's kind of going public transport, so you're always, like I said, you're surrounded by people. Although especially in a city like London, you're not going to be socializing with anybody, and everyone's got like their headphones in, so no one's really talking. But at least you feel like you're living, you know what I mean? You feel like you're out there. I felt kind of isolated in the United States because of that. But at the same time, I guess you could say you could feel isolated. I know a lot of people have this feeling where they feel alone even though physically they're around a lot of people. And I feel like that happens a lot in a city like London, where everyone's kind of like to their own, and so you kind of feel, although you're in a big city, you feel isolated. And I know for me, this is another, we'll get into it a bit later too, but big culture shock I've gotten. So I know that I wouldn't say like the conventional cultures or nationalities aren't here, because that's obviously subjective. And coming from the United States, though, it's it's a different mix. Like the big cities in the United States has a different mix of nationalities and immigrants than here in London. That's also kind of taken me by surprise. I'm not by surprise, but I'm not used to it, obviously. Um, and obviously, I mean, predominantly in the United States, you got a lot of Spanish, a big Latino culture and influence. Here, not as much, not at all, really. There's just kind of tiny communities of either Dominicans or Colombians, kind of the big countries in South America. A lot of Brazilians too. But United States, it's a bit funny because it's like, I wouldn't say that it's the opposite, but you have bigger communities of smaller countries like Puerto Rico, for example. Um, there's parts of the United States. If you go to Florida, if you go to New York, everyone's Puerto Rican, and it's kind of like, how can everyone be Puerto Rican when the island only has 3 million people? But that's why the island only has 3 million people. Here, I would say it's predominantly Middle Eastern, lots of African, so like lots of Nigerian, um, and so yeah, that's another thing that's kind of surprised me about here. Coming to London, is that um, yeah, lots. It's very, you'll walk to and by the way, big disclaimer, huge disclaimer. This isn't anything politically. I'm not complaining about. I'm not saying it's good nor bad. I'm just saying what I've noticed so far, and at the same time, I've only been here for like 2 weeks, and a lot of that time has been kind of like going from Airbnb to. Sorry about that, guys. My phone died halfway through the that last recording, so I was just talking to myself basically for like 20 minutes. So that was fun. But now while my phone's charging, I'm just gonna finish the video quickly on my computer here. But yeah. So what I was saying is that my experience here, and that with the so this is just kind of my first impressions, and so, and also it's been also not the kind of
best time to really experience what the city is like. Especially, like I said, I was just kind of in an Airbnb before in a completely different area than where I am now. But now I've finally kind of gotten my longer term accommodation. So we'll see if my kind of opinion changes over time as I create more social groups and get more exposed to what the city has to offer. Um, Also, a big thing is the language barrier with English. Sometimes, like with the locals here that were born and raised in London, I just can't understand them. And I remember it was really annoying me when I was in work and they would tell me to do something, especially in like a high paced environment like that, with the music in the background, everyone talking, and I had no idea what they were saying. And I had to like, and I was also too scared to ask again and again and again because they would be like, does this guy even speak English? Um, so yeah, that's another thing I've kind of had to get adjusted to, and I'm still trying to get adjusted to. It's different because I was in New York for my uni, and I played there, and so I was there for about like 4 years or whatever. So I thought I got like my ear more trained to the English accent, and especially in the north, like the northern Yorkshire accent isn't the easiest to understand, but um, that's one thing I do like about England, though. The kind of every city has its own culture and it has its own accent. And although England isn't the biggest country in the world, and so the cities are quite next to each other, like Liverpool and Manchester, those cities are virtually next to each other, but completely different accents. I always thought that was kind of cool. Um, and every kind of city has its own slang and way of saying this object or the other object or this food or the other food and its own kind of different cultures. So that's cool. But yeah, I haven't, like I said before, I haven't had a lot of experiences with local London people because I'm finding it hard to find people who are kind of born and raised here. Um, but maybe that'll change um, over time. But obviously, it's what I was expecting because I knew that London, just like a lot of cities in the world, is extremely kind of immigrant heavy. So it's kind of like the thing where the people who live here aren't from here, and the people who are from here moved out of here. Um, I say that as I'm an immigrant as well. But I haven't found too many Americans here, like on a day to day, like the few times I've gone out at night, like to like clubbing or just even bar hopping. There was this one place. There was like a rave place that I don't like raves or anything like that. It was just kind of, it was the only thing open, and there was a lot of Americans, and I think they were there for like a lot there for uni, exchange programs, and whatever, tourism. But yeah, that's what it's like so far. I don't know if I said this in the kind of in the clip before. I don't know if I got to say this, but not the experiences. I definitely can't complain. I think it's still better than living in a kind of isolated town in the middle of nowhere in Massachusetts in the United States. I kind of like that feeling of being kind of like, you know what I mean, in the world. Talking about that, definitely one of the cities where I feel, I don't know about the least safe, but there's quite some like unhingement here. Like a lot of people are unhinged, and it's also because I'm not very familiar with the laws and what you can do, what you can't do, what you can do, how can you defend yourself, and if you can't. So, but definitely I've had some. I've only been here for 2 months, and I've had some quite alarming experiences of being followed and all this and all that, and it's kind of like it's alarming because at least like I said, when you don't know the laws, and that's my own fault probably, but if you don't know the laws and stuff, and someone's kind of harassing you or whatever, and it's kind of like how much can I defend myself? You know what I mean? And you don't want to risk anything with the visa. You don't want to risk anything. So that's been interesting, but that's definitely something that I have noticed where even though I speak English, like I speak the native language here and everything, there's parts of London here that I feel completely out of place and like really kind of like an anomaly. Like I stick out in those certain areas, and like I said, I've felt more safe in Medellin, Puerto Rico. That's obviously because I feel like I kind of understand the culture better and have more street smarts in places like that than here, where it's kind of like I feel like it's the Wild West and everyone's kind of you have a big culture of like the roadman thing or whatever, and so a lot of people are first time I've ever heard this term like G checking you, which is them coming up to you on the street and threatening you and saying, oh, like, where are you from, or blah 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 blah. I just know in the United States that happens a lot, obviously, but in certain areas, and also not as aggressive because obviously it goes without saying the United States is more, let's say, liberal with the way you can defend yourself and stuff like that. So people are less likely to want to like look for problems because the consequences could potentially be worse, I guess, if you know what I'm saying, than here. Although here I do find it to be I've seen more kind of open crime here than in the United States, for example, or than Colombia. Obviously, hey, I was in Medellin and Poblado, which is very touristy, so I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, it's not like I'm here saying that, like, oh, yeah, I know everything about London and there, and I think that London is more dangerous than there, because obviously not. But I'm just saying with my personal experience, like I said, that I've seen some crazy stuff here already. Like, I've been in a pharmacy or whatever, and in plain daylight at like 2 p.m. and in a pharmacy in a nice touristy area, nice area, and this guy just comes in and with a huge bag, and he's just robbing the place, like just going through the shelves and taking everything, and everyone's telling him like, whoa, what's going, like, stop and whatever. He just keeps going, and he just took this stuff, and to me he looked mentally ill. And he was an immigrant, because like it was obvious that like he didn't understand English. So he just came in, and everyone's like, they were trying to like talk to him and at least get an explanation of what he's doing, and I don't even think he knew English. Because the one time he did talk, it was like, and he said something in some other language. And then they like locked the door, I guess, for him to go out, to stop him going out. But it was the worst thing. He just walked out. I don't even think the lock worked. And even if it did work, probably they locked him out. But in reality, I don't want to risk my life, especially with someone that is so unpredictable. For a couple, like, we were in a pharmacy, so it's not like we were in like a jewelry store or something where they'd be robbing thousands. The guy was robbing like all basic necessities. So it's kind of like, I'm not really gonna risk, I wouldn't say risk my life, but risk something maybe going wrong just for, $25 worth of whatever. It was probably more like $50, because like he was just going on the shelves and just grabbing random things. And then, yeah, he just walked out, and And I'm pretty sure on the way out, because I kind of like looked outside, I was like, is this really happening right now in front of me, like in pure daylight on a random Saturday at 2 p.m. when everyone's out? And he just kind of walked out, no alarm, no nothing. And I think he just also just like walked by the police. Obviously, I don't think that the staff alarmed the police, but it was quite an uproar that we made, or that store made, and they were just like, what is this guy doing? And everyone was kind of looking and stuff like that. And the police kind of like, I don't know if they like just kind of looked the other way or didn't want to deal with it. I'm pretty sure if the police knew what was going on, obviously they would have intervened. But definitely, like I said, and I've never seen that happen in the United States. I'm one to admit that I've been kind of like, I wouldn't say sheltered, because I've, you know, just like any big city, like Boston has some pretty bad areas. Um, but I haven't seen something kind of like that, obvious, like middle of the day, like I said, on a Saturday, and stuff. Like even the other day, I went into the to the bank, and some guy off the street just like followed me in, started talking to me in Spanish, but like Spanish, it was like broken Spanish. I don't know how I didn't say anything. I didn't look at him. I didn't even know who he was, and I don't know why he talked to me in Spanish. Because then he asked like, "Oh, do you speak Spanish?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I said I was talking Spanish. I said, "See, whatever." And then he started talking to me in English again, and trying to sell me a phone. And mind you, we're in the middle of a bank. Like I'm in the line for a bank, like, and here, and he's just like a ram. Nobody did anything, and and then I basically told him like, no, in English, like, no, I don't need a phone. And then he kind of got like annoyed, because I didn't want to buy a random phone off of him that was obviously used, cracked screen and everything. I don't know what the guy was doing. And then he kind of got, I won't say angry, but he got like annoyed. He started saying like, "Oh, I thought you spoke Spanish. Why aren't you speaking Spanish to me?" And I was just like, "Well, first of all, because you're talking to me in English, and it's obvious you don't speak Spanish. And number two, what is going on?" You know what I mean? Like, and then he was at the end. He was like, "Oh, okay, whatever. Like, how do you say one in Spanish?" And I was like, "Uno," and he was just like, "Oh, uno love, like one love," and just kind of like left. And I know obviously those things don't sound like the end of the world, and they're not. Trust me, I'm not here saying that like, oh, I felt like my life was in danger, but it was definitely. And trust me, those are not the only things that have happened. I've seen some stuff, like, and that's like, these are like daily occurrences. But it's like, it's like any other. I know if I moved to New York, and I would be taking public transport every day, going into like stuff like that, I know I'd have similar encounters all the time. And that's why the kind of meme about people from New York is that they're just so desensitized to everything, that, you know what I mean? And I know it's the same thing here. So so yeah, that's so far what's kind of my experience and what's going on and what's kind of to look forward to or whatever. But yeah, hopefully, now that I'm, have more free time, I don't know how long it'll be for, but definitely I'm going to, even when I do find another job, like I've got my side things of like the coaching, and then I want to find like a typical kind of, not 9 to 5 maybe, but like a day job. But I want to be a bit more, because the last job, like I said, in the hospitality business, it's a little very kind of crazy. One day I'm having to wake up at 8 a.m. Then the next day I'm getting home at 3 a.m. And especially as an athlete, especially as someone that's like loves to be anchored into their routine, it just kind of, it was so crazy, and so I kind of neglected. I neglected everything: the gym, my diet, my language learning. Had to change my, um, hours on the English teaching thing or whatever. So, but now we'll see. I don't want to also not a big guy of doing promises because actions speak louder than words. So in the future, I will. Oh yeah, I just said I'm not gonna promise anything, and actions speak louder than words. But I'm looking to, now that I'm a bit more settled in, post more often. If you guys have any suggestions about anything, I'm also looking to do more like dynamic kind of videos, not just kind of these kind of sit down podcasts. But I like the interview stuff; those are fun, and maybe like vlogs or whatever. To be honest, but yeah, thank you for listening in on this episode. I know it's not ideal with the two different scenarios. In the beginning of the video, I was in one place with one different mic levels, and then now, but hey, that's what happens, especially in the beginning of the channel. I'm just experimenting. I'm just kind of like doing more quantity over quality, and I think that's the best thing to do. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.